what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. So the prejudging for the 2025 Mr. Olympia Men's Open Bodybuilding just wrapped up. You're looking at the pictures of the first call-out right here. So the first call-out was Hadi, Martin, Nick, Andrew, Derek, and Samson. It seemed to me like Derek and Samson were the standouts of this first call-out. And really, on first impressions, when we were watching all the individual routines before they did the call-outs, I think that Samson in the beginning was the standout, most impressive guy to me. It's definitely one of the leaner versions of Samson that we've ever seen. He definitely seems to have focused on condition for this show. I think one of the surprises of this call-out was Nick Walker stayed on the outside basically the entire time. And then not only that, but for the final call-out, the final four, the top four call-out, Nick Walker was not included. Andrew Jacked was. So I'm sure there's a lot of unhappy Nick Walker fans right now. Nick Walker seems to be looking at 5th place. So as you're looking at this call-out, the second call-out was Good Vito, Behruz Tabani, Brandon Curry, Jordan Hutchinson, Antonio Burton, and William Bonac. Good Vito, Brandon Curry, Antonio seemed to be the standouts of that call-out. The third call-out was everybody else, and the standout seemed to be Rubiel, Urs, and Regan. So the first call-out that you're looking at here is for 1st through 6th. The second call-out that you were looking at was 7th through 12th place. Then third call-out was everybody outside of 12th place. So even though Urs, Rubiel, and Regan were the standouts of that call-out, they're looking to be outside of the top 12. Good Vito is looking to be inside of the top 10. But back to this first call-out of 6, it was pretty clear that Derek, Hadi, and Samson were the 3 standouts yet again. Martin Fitzwater looked great here. He was also in that call-out with Nick battling for that 5th place spot. So that 5th place is either going to be Martin or Nick. Honestly, I was kind of leaning towards Martin on it for 5th. But let's go ahead and jump to some of the images and videos of that final 4 call-out, because as the camera gets closer, I feel like you can see the physiques a bit better as it's cropped in on just 4 guys instead of 6. So they started out with just Samson next to Hadi in the center. And eventually, they actually moved Samson to the outside and never moved him back in. They actually ended this final 4 call-out with Derek and Hadi in the center. Now, this was kind of interesting because, like I said earlier, when Samson first walked out, I was most impressed with him. I feel like he may have faded a little bit towards the end, which is kind of what happened at the Arnold. So they did a full round of posing with Derek and Hadi in the center and Samson on the outside, and they ended it there. So up until that final 4 call-out, I would have said it was between Derek and Samson. And in the beginning, I was leaning towards Samson because this was a very conditioned version of Samson. I really like the look that Samson brought here, but kind of similar to the Arnold, I don't know if he was fully able to hold on to it the entire prejudging, hold on to that condition. And again, it feels very similar to the Arnold in the sense that Derek really seemed to hold on to his condition the whole way through. And then as that final 4 call-out progressed and it was just Derek and Hadi in the center, I really started to feel like it was between Derek and Hadi and no longer between Derek and Samson. I feel like Hadi was getting better and drier and harder as he posed. And when it was just him and Derek in the center and Samson was on the outside, I feel like then my eyes were being drawn more to Hadi than either Derek or Samson. And really, the only guy in this final 4 call-out that was never in the center, never in that center too, was Andrew Jacked. So I think Andrew Jacked is almost definitely looking at 4th place because it seemed like they were really comparing Hadi, Derek, and Samson for the majority of that call-out. They were the guys that they moved around, and they didn't really move Andrew at all. And also, I do want to point out and give credit to the promoters of the Olympia. They did black out the backdrop for the entire prejudging. They even flashed a sign on the screen that said, "Please hold for the prejudging blackout." So they did completely black out the LEDs that were behind the bodybuilder. So they did answer the fans' wishes with the plain black backdrop for the prejudging, which I thought was a really nice touch. I gotta say, based on the way this is looking, I honestly think it looks like they're gonna go with Derek on this one. I know a lot of people might not like to hear that because when we did the poll, of who do you guys think is going to win the Olympia. 50-something thousand people voted on that poll, and only 5% picked Derek. This feels like a very similar situation to the Arnold. Derek is, I think, pretty close to that Arnold package, and it kind of felt the same where I feel like Samson kind of faded towards the end. Derek kind of remained pretty consistent throughout all the call-outs, and he was in the center of the first call-out, he was in the center of the final call-out, and he was consistent all the way through. Even though Hadi got a little bit better and harder towards the end of prejudging, he looked like he was on the outside. Derek and Samson were in the center, and Hadi was in like the third place comparison spot. Derek, to be fair, he was pretty complete. He was conditioned. He was consistent. He stayed the same all the way through. And like I said, first call out and final call out, he started and ended dead in the center, and his physique really didn't change much the whole prejudging. So it kind of feels like they're going to go with Derek on this one. So I think at the end of prejudging, all things considered in this final call-out, I think it's going to be between Derek and Hadi at the end of prejudging. I think that's what you're going to see reflected in the scorecards. And I did predict Hadi to win initially, but I have a feeling they're going to go with Derek on this one. It seems like that's the direction they're leaning, and I just don't think Samson stayed consistent enough all the way through the prejudging. I just have a feeling Samson's not going to retain. I feel like we are going to hear the words "and new," and it's either going to be Derek or Hadi, I think. I think the only thing that would change that is if Samson comes in fuller tomorrow. He just, by the end of this thing, he just looked kind of flat. He lost a little bit of his pop. Maybe he went a little bit overboard chasing that condition. On the individuals, I thought he looked fine. Like I said, when he walked out and he was on his own, he looked impressive. But towards the end of this prejudging, I think he lost a bit of that pop, that kind of wow factor that he had. And I think he needs to come back fuller for the finals tomorrow.
Arnold Arcade. Blast physiques with aggressive lasers. Unleash your arsenal of flash and trash. Armed with fog machines, lasers, and an endless thirst for attention. Stack power in Flextress. Chase glory in chasing gains. Play solo. Team up with a friend or battle online. And best of all, like the live stream, it's all free. Arnold Arcade. Download yours today.
Now, I also want to show you guys the second call out here. So of this call out, so in this call-out, you had Good Vito, Behruz Tabani, Brandon Curry, Jordan Hutchinson, Tonio Burton, and William Bonac. Of this call-out, the guys that moved on to the 5 through 10 call-out were Vito, Tonio, then Nick and Martin got added to it, Brandon and Bonac. So of this call-out, you're mostly going to want to look at Good Vito, Tonio, Brandon Curry, and Bonac, because those are the guys that round out the top 10. So Hadi, Andrew, Samson, Derek, those are going to be your top 4. And then Vito, Tonio, Martin, Nick, Brandon, Bonac, those guys will fill out the rest of the top 10. I'm kind of leaning towards Martin and Nick are definitely going to be 5 and 6. I don't know in which order. And when it comes to Nick, I feel like it came down to, for me, he didn't look as detailed and sharp as he did at the Pittsburgh show. He looked a little bit off conditioning-wise, especially even compared to Martin. I feel like Martin had a little bit more of a crisp look to him overall. I would have liked to see either Martin or Nick in that final call-out and made it 5 guys. And honestly, I think probably Martin, as big of a fan of Nick Walker as I am, he just looked a little bit off. Something was off with his physique. The condition just wasn't hitting like the other guys that were in the top 4. He just didn't have that pop. He didn't seem to have that detail. He looks like he's probably looking at 6th realistically. And I'm not really mad about it. I mean, even though I'm a big Nick Walker fan and I thought he might be top 3, I think that when you look at that top 4, Hadi, Andrew, Samson, and Derek, I don't think Nick brought that level of wow factor that they brought. Despite all the updates that we saw from Nick, I think that was a solid top 4. I think all of those guys, especially Andrew, really brought it. I think this was probably, I would say arguably the best Andrew jacked maybe that we've ever seen, conditioning-wise. And I don't think that realistically I would have had Nick beating any of them. This was not the Pittsburgh Pro version of Nick for sure. I mean, we didn't even get to see Nick stand next to Derek at all, at any point during this prejudging. They never moved Nick even close enough to Derek to see them next to each other. So there was a very clear gap between Nick and Derek, which did not exist at the Pittsburgh show. And something is just telling me here that Nick is going to wind up probably in 6. So we'll see what happens with the finals. I feel like a lot could change for the finals because none of these decisions really seemed super firm. Like even that top 4 call out, it seemed like it was between Derek and Samson the whole prejudging, but as Samson faded, then it kind of seemed like it was Derek and Hottie. So even that didn't seem super set in stone, and maybe that could change at the finals. Maybe someone looks a lot better. And I feel like Samson does have the most room to get a lot better for the finals. I think he needs to fill out a bit, come in fuller. And I feel like he could bring the most improved look to the finals and have like a big swing in points if he looks a lot better. So it could still be between Derek and Samson, but I guess we'll have to see what happens at the finals. But right now, I think it's between Derek and Hottie, and I feel like they're leaning towards Derek on this one. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are your predictions based on these call-outs? If I really had to predict it, I'd say Derek winning, Hottie 2nd, Samson 3rd, Andrew 4th as of prejudging, and that could change for the finals. Oh, I also wanted to mention Good Vito, too. Good Vito is going to be top 10. I think probably, honestly, in my predictions, I had Vito in 8th. That might be one of the only predictions that comes true. I can see Vito being right around 8th. I could see that for sure. I thought he looked really impressive here, and he actually ended up outshining Beirut. So Beirut looks like he's going to be on the outside looking in because he wasn't in that second call-out that included Martin and Nick. So that would have been the final guys included in the top 10. And it was Vito, Tonio, Martin, Nick, Brandon, Bonac. I think I would have Vito over Brandon and Bonac. So if Vito is 8th, then I would say you would put Tonio in 7th, Nick 6th, Martin 5th. I don't know, very interesting stuff, but it looks like yet another year at the Olympia. Derek, Hottie, and Samson are your top 3. Not necessarily in that order, but yet again, the top 3 remains those 3 guys. It looks like, again, based on the fact they never moved Andrew to the inside, it looks like it's going to be one of those guys again this year. And right now, I feel like the judges are leaning towards Derek. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Comment your predictions, all that good stuff. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.